Welcome to this new episode of the Wellness Podcast. In this episode, the guest is Rashi Goyal, who is a counseling psychologist and the founder of the Empty Chair Counseling Center. In this episode, we discussed about therapy as specific, especially about sliding scale ones, where you can afford therapy as well. Therapy is affordable, and we used to hear a lot that therapy isn't affordable. There are a lot of therapists providing therapy at affordable cost. What are pro bono cases? What are sliding scale sessions? In this episode, we discuss that. Therapy isn't about fixing you. Therapy is much more deeper. We also discuss about how you can find the right therapist, because this will not happen like you go to therapy and within first session you make it the match. Therapist is a therapist, but the right therapist for you can be a different one as well. So there can be multiple therapists you can go to find the right therapist. In this episode, we discussed that. And if you are a therapist, we also discussed about systems in this episode. So if you're a therapist or if you're looking for therapy, this episode is for you.
Hey Rashi, how are you?
I'm good, Ishank. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good. I'm so happy to host you as a speaker in this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So today we are going to talk about how actually therapy works. So what is therapy and how it works?
All right, okay. So I'm glad that you've asked me that because therapy, what happens is usually people feel, even nowadays, people feel, "Arey, aap baat hi to karte ho. You're just going to give us an advice, right? So give me a solution. I'm right here for a solution." But that's exactly what therapy is not at all. Right? Therapy is much deeper. Therapy is much more about understanding you, understanding your emotions, your communications, your patterns. That is exactly what therapy is. Now, personally, we as therapists, we believe that any person who comes for therapy is the expert of their life and they have the answers to their questions, right? So, therapy is all about helping them find those answers to those questions and helping them recognize that, yes, you are the expert of your life.
That's a great example, yeah. Um, Multiple people know what they are doing, but need someone to analyze it. Especially when I went to therapy, I realized my patterns a lot. That these are the set of patterns that I'm following. And these are bad patterns, these are good patterns for me. If I follow this pattern, I can be more productive, I can be more, you can say, bring more output, whatever the input I'm putting in my business, whatever input I'm putting in my relationships, family, friends. And these are the bad outcomes that are coming because of my bad patterns. So
Hmm.
this is how I also got benefit from therapy. So, if we move further, so therapy is not just talking, right?
Correct.
So, what it actually it is and how much sessions do someone needs? For example, like if I am taking therapy for nearly 2 months
Hmm.
and just took 2 sessions, will it work for me? Or should I take one session every 2 weeks or 1 week? How it is? What are the patterns that people should follow while taking therapy?
So, very honestly, there is no idealistic way, but one thing that is usually said is that while you are starting, it's preferred to have one session in a week, like a minimum of 5 to 7 days of gap during initial times. And then as we see that, things are getting better, we can then move to once in 2 weeks, once in 15 days, or once in 3 weeks, right? Because initially what happens is there is a lot of work happening. It's like imagine a bada box hai. People like during the first 2 3 sessions, people have come and poured everything out of the box. So there are like all new and old things. So we will pick one thing at a time, gradually work on it, and then nicely place it back in the box, which will take some time, right? Now, again, therapy is not like workout sessions कि भाई 6 महीने में आपका weight loss हो जाएगा, 3 महीने में body building हो जाएगी, right? So it's more like understanding that how deep is the concern, how willing are you to work on your concerns, how motivated are you to actually stick by that change as well, right? So there's no actual number, but if we were to look at giving a particular number, Usually, on an average, if we set goals, so one goal can take somewhere between 4 to 7 sessions, right? So, again, depending on how deep the concern is, how willing you are, sometimes a person feels that, okay, 4 to 5 sessions are good enough for me. Sometimes even 10 to 15 sessions can feel very less or can just feel like a beginning as well.
All right. So if you talk about individual people, for example, multiple people saw multiple results and couple of people don't saw that much result and then shifted to another therapist. So first question is how to find a good therapist or the therapist that suits you. Second, if it didn't work out with one therapist, then you can say what is the definition of good therapist for some clients, that if I'm getting healed, then it
Hmm.
will be a good therapist for me. Or if my patterns are analyzed or my
Hmm.
problem is getting solution more frequently, more speed is very less. So
Hmm.
what exactly good therapist definition is for client's perspective, and then how to find a good therapist for you.
Okay. Firstly, yes, it can be difficult for clients to find the right or a good therapist, but a definition of good therapist is firstly who has completed their studies properly, like either a BA, BSc, MA, MSc, and then a PG diploma, or if you're talking in terms of clinical also. So they've done their RCI license, they've done their MPhil. So degrees is what we look at is the first thing, right? So, are the degrees in place or not? Are they correct or not? Secondly, a good therapist or a definition of good therapist is where the client feels heard, where the client feels comfortable, where the client feels that I am able to talk, I am able to share, and I don't feel unsafe, right? Now, even while we are talking, safety can be felt in multiple ways. One thing is if your therapist is again and again interrupting you, that's where your rapport goes completely for a toss. Because a good rapport between a client and a therapist is what makes a good therapist, right? Second, if you feel that what I'm saying is being judged, that will again also act as a bad therapy space, right? So, where you are safe, where you feel heard, where you feel that you are not given direct solution, but you are given a path,
Right.
you are being given a choice, you're being given different perspectives. This is what consists of these are few things that what consists of being a good therapist, right? Now coming to the
Mhm.
second point, that how can we find a good therapist. there are multiple ways. आज कितनी बार होता है अगर हम डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं कि कोई डॉक्टर की दवाई नहीं सूट करे, so then we think of going to another doctor, right? Similarly, you can choose out of multiple therapists. Most therapists offer a discovery call, which is like a 15 to 20 minutes or a 15 to 30 minutes of a call where we also understand that if we are able to cater to the client or not, and where the client also gets a space to to gauge if this is the best fit therapist for me or not, right? So, where in brief, we will talk about the process, we will try to understand a client's concerns. So if I feel that a particular concern, what the client is really looking therapy for is something that I don't work with, so that's my opportunity to tell the client that I don't think we are a good fit. I don't think I can do justice to you or to your concern. I would like to refer you to a person who can help you with this particular concern, right? So again, a good therapist is knowing their shortcomings or knowing what they can help with and what they cannot work with and drawing that boundary, right? So doing discovery calls, doing your due diligence, checking whether the psychologist has done their degrees or not correctly, right? Or sometimes also the kind of therapeutic approach that the therapist offers. If the client has a little bit of understanding, or if they Google, if they try to understand, that will also help them understand that okay, if I work a particular way and if the therapist works in a different way, maybe this is not a good fit for me.
Right. So now I did my due diligence. I searched about therapist. I read about how therapy works and also try to find, you can say, multiple therapists that are under the same bracket and education. So, for example, a client did his due diligence, figure out a list of therapists, and book a slot with one therapist at a discovery call. Around 15-10 minutes of a call discussing about how therapy works. Then what's next? Then a proper session is down the line, or notes that a client will be getting. What are the steps? First, you can say discovery call or a email thread, for example. That this is the first interaction you are doing with your therapist. That can be a WhatsApp chat, email thread, or a discovery call. What's the second step?
Second step is scheduling the first session, where we talk about or we understand about the family structure, we delve deeper into the concerns, and we set goals. So the next step after discovery call is scheduling your first session and getting into that first session.
Understood. And then let's talk about rapport building, for example. First discovery call or first interaction is done. Second step is scheduling a session. Then the session
Correct.
is being scheduled. Then what about the rapport building? Because I believe you need at least 4 to 5 sessions with a therapist to build a strong rapport. So let's talk about rapport now.
Yes, totally. Rapport building takes a lot of time because when the client is coming, they are a little anxious, they are nervous because talking to stranger doesn't come easily, right? So rapport building takes time, 2 to 4 sessions. Sometimes even after ninth or 10th session, the client may feel that I don't think I'm able to relate or I don't think this is working out, which is completely okay, right? That's where in your first 2, 3 sessions, when you talk about your process, when you let the client know how is the outline, how, what kind of pattern am I thinking, like this is how we want to go ahead. Keeping the client first is actually one of the basic steps to build rapport, right? Keeping the client first and listening to them, giving like a proper non-judgmental listening here is what really starts as a rapport building process.
Right. So now I'm taking therapy for example, and I went to therapist, booked a discovery call, and then we discussed upon a mutual time slot looking at my calendar and her calendar, and we booked a session. And then first session happened for nearly a month. 4 5 sessions totally happened, and now we have a strong rapport. We know a bit about my life, my habits, my patterns, my problem statement, and more, you can say, more in depth about the problem that I'm facing. Now, what's next? Uh, if I need to analyze my pattern or to analyze my anxiety or need to analyze my childhood trauma, for example, then how much session I required?
So again, see, there is no set answer in terms of how much time do I require, because what happens is usually in the first 1 or 2 sessions, or mostly in my first sessions, when the clients come, they're like, "Oh, I thought I'm going to talk to you about something else, but I ended up talking about completely different things," right? And what we've spoken about in the therapy session, or rather, what we've spoken about, what brings you here, when we transcend to coming to setting goals, that becomes completely different, right? So usually the whole pattern of therapy is led by the clients only. So I always tell this to my clients that you are the driver of the car and I am just a co-passenger, right? Now, how do we work around childhood trauma? What happens is if the presenting problems or the concerns that the client has come with while we are talking in the first 2 to 3 sessions is where we understand, where a client is able to gain a lot of insight of the client, where there is more about just getting to know the client. So if a particular client comes in and if, say for example, they are telling me that uh, uh, every few months I have fallout with my partner or I have fallout with my friends and I end up losing people in my life. So I'm able to gauge that there is a pattern where people are where this with this particular client is losing their relationships. So that's when we go to childhood and we try to understand the patterns from childhood, that have they picked up anything from there, or is this something that they've developed on the go. So that helps us understand that, do we need to first delve deeper into childhood, or do we need to first focus on the presenting concern, that is the problem that they have come up with. So that helps identify, and that's how we can then go ahead.
Understandable, understandable. So now, from a client perspective, uh, let's talk about something different from therapy thing. From a client perspective, therapy is expensive from many clients' perspective. So, what do you think about it? Therapy is actually expensive, or is it accessible? Is it not? What do you want to say about it?
Therapy can be expensive for people. There are range of therapists that offer therapy that is accessible also. There are a lot of people who offer pro bono therapy also, right? And then there are therapists who charge their worth or charge according to their experience also. However, I little bit disagree when people say that it's not accessible, because there are multiple options, there are multiple things, right? Now, whenever we go to buy a cloth, right? So you will find a cloth, you will get a cloth that suits your budget, or you can go a little higher, you can go a little lower. Same with therapy. So it is accessible. Yes, it can feel expensive for certain people. That's when sliding scale option comes in. So a lot of therapists offer that okay, like say for example, for me, I want to take 5 clients with full session fee, and I want to take 5 clients with a sliding scale option where I'm willing to cut my fee to a particular point to adjust according to the client's needs. So that option is also available. So maybe three things that people can look at is, one is pro bono, one is accessible, and one is a therapist with an sliding scale option.
Right. And now, which therapist I should choose? For example, I'm anxious and I am feeling a bit low, and I know that it is affecting my daily life. It is affecting the time I'm waking up, it is affecting my work culture, it is affecting my team, it is affecting my sleep schedule. Should I go to a counseling psychologist directly, or should I go to a sports psychologist? Because I play cricket all the time. My profession is cricket. Should I go to a
Right.
sports psychologist, or should I go to RCA licensed psychologist, that is clinical psychologist, or should I go to a psychiatrist? Should I go to, you can say, child therapist, or should I go to relationship counselor? Which kind of psychologist I should go ahead with?
Correct. Correct. So there are two approaches. Either you can follow like a top to bottom, or a other way approach as well. Where if you feel that my daily life is getting affected to a point where day-to-day tasks are getting too difficult for me to handle or too difficult for me to carry on, you can directly go to a psychiatrist. So a psychiatrist would understand, if required, they will give you medicines. Then they will also tell you that with medicines, therapy is also required. Or if you feel, I think psychiatrist is a little too scary for me, or I think that's too big of a step for me, you can start with either counseling psychologist, clinical psychologist, or since you're a sports person, so a sports psychologist as well. Child psychologists are mostly for people who work with children. Relationship psychologist or a relationship therapist is for people who work with couples mostly, right? So if you are looking for therapy for yourself, so then relationship therapist also doesn't really make sense right now, right? Clinical psychologists are people who will help you with, if at all there is any form of testing that is required, right? So they would do a test, maybe say for example a personality test, or maybe say for example an IQ test or something like that, right? A clinical psychologist usually does a talk therapy where they'll try to understand your patterns, where they'll try to understand that, okay, if you're feeling anxious, what is making you anxious? Where is this coming from? What areas of your life are affecting? And then work on all of them together. Clinical psychologists will also do the same thing, but they also do testing. So now, say for example, if you go to a counseling psychologist, and a counseling psychologist feel that okay, there is something that we need to assess, so then a counseling psychologist will refer you to a clinical psychologist that let's get these tests done. And when the clinical psychologists feel that maybe additional medicines may be required, then they will refer you to a psychiatrist.
Understood. So, if you're watching this and you're facing any minor, nano, or even major daily life issues, go to therapy. Try therapy. Give it a shot, and it's worth it. I'm telling you, it's worth it. So, moving further, if people are looking at a therapy with a different lens, especially in tier 20 cities, what people can do to make it more acceptable, how to create awareness in, you can say, kind of in therapy side. For example, you can also give us an example like you should talk to therapy in normal words on dining table or on your family group, you can just communicate it. You can give some movie references. How to make therapy more acceptable in tier 20 city, if I may ask it. So, yeah.
Yes. Firstly, be open about it that yes, I think I require additional help and I am seeking therapy, right? So being open and honest about it as and when with people you feel comfortable, because therapy is also a little bit of a personal work, right? Now, second, understanding that it's not bad. It's therapy is not only for people who are in problem or who have any sort of disorder. It's for everybody, right? How बुखार होता है तो हम डॉक्टर के पास जाते ही हैं, right? Or when we want to say, for example, become a cricketer, you would go to a coach, right? So similarly, if you feel that, yeah, I think I need that extra holding hand, I need someone to help me with few things that everybody cannot understand or not my friends or family can help me, right? So it's okay to go to an expert. So firstly, having that approach that there is nothing wrong in asking for help and there's nothing wrong in going to therapy, right?
Hmm.
Second, when you feel comfortable, if you feel comfortable that I seek therapy, just like in the movie Dear Zindagi, when Alia Bhatt asks her friend, okay, are you still seeing your therapist? And he's like, yeah, whenever I feel the need, I go to my therapist. So that's exactly what motivated Alia Bhatt also to seek therapy,
Hmm.
right? So that's another thing. Movie references. Nowadays, we have so many good movies that are showing. Like Dear Zindagi is like one of the movies that I love to recommend people. Ke bhai dekho jaake, you will see how beautifully therapy works. There are, of course, there are good and bad aspects to
Hmm.
that movie as well. But yes, a lot of movies, a lot of mainstream media is now showing therapists under the good light. So taking references from that as well.
Right. So, I want to highlight one thing. You talked about a great flow. Like, first, you can book a discovery call with a therapist or an email thread or a WhatsApp thread, and then go for a proper session. That is one step before your session can be just interacting with your therapist,
Hmm.
and then having a like proper session with the therapist, and then building rapport with her to get comfortable, and then I believe clients can see results. So I want to just divert a thing towards a psychology lens. So what do you think? Like, do psychologists have funnels? Because many therapists provide discovery calls, but clients used to feel hard to book it because multiple times you are just mailing psychologist to get a time slot. Sometimes you're doing a WhatsApp thread. Sometimes psychologists have a proper link tree, or you can say a micro website, but
Hmm.
they don't have time slots written there. Or many psychologists just operate through Google Forms. They don't have a website. So, what do you want to convey to psychologists? What exactly they can do so that they can involve this discovery call and then schedule and then a proper repo building program one by one? so that everything is at one place, and therapist can easily do that. So, what exactly you can convey to therapist?
One thing would be actually putting yourself out there, like, not everybody is comfortable putting their WhatsApp number or a personal number. So at least email ID where the clients can contact you
Hmm.
through somehow, some way, right? And then maybe say, for example, on a daily basis, setting like a 15 minutes of time that yes, I will be checking those emails and responding, because again, how soon do you respond to the client is also something that, because when the client sends that email or when the client reaches out to you, they are in constant anticipation that, oh, when is the therapist going to respond, when is this going to happen? So trying to shorten the gap between them reaching out to you and them scheduling that session right away, right? Now, one thing that has really worked with me over the years, I realized after much struggle and, like, is having a proper landing page, website or Instagram page, anywhere where the clients can see your work, where they are able to relate to you. So that's another thing. Second, as you mentioned, a lot of times what happens is a lot of back and forth happens. What I was, that's the exact thing that I was doing all these years, where people would call me, I would tell them, okay, you can call me between this time to this time. Then I would wait for their call. Our timings wouldn't match. Now I have set up a proper system where either they can reach out to me via phone call or email ID, right? Which both are available on my website. On my website, there is a small book now button where person can directly book a discovery call or a full session as well. Over there, my days, my timings, my available slots, everything is mentioned. So, so the clients don't have to do a lot of back and forth as well. Because what happens is while we are in session, we don't touch our phones.
Hmm.
It's very important to be there with the client. So if a client is calling you, you may miss their call as well, right? So
Right.
again, that will lead to the whole process where the client will think, kab baat hogi, kab session schedule hoga, right? So trying to reduce that ambiguity and that time gap between when the client reaches out to you and when you schedule that session, that would really be helpful from a client's perspective.
Right. Plus, what I personally feel here is therapists need to realize, uh, many therapists realize this as well, but many don't, that your private practice is a small business. And every business, no matter what business it is, which industry it is, if it is BPC, things would be a bit different. If it is FMCG, things will be a bit different. If it is services, like therapy services, things will be a bit different, but base will be similar. Need to understand that base is very important. Base that allows you to automate multiple processes. So systems are very important.
Hmm.
You rightly said that website that have a book now button, that have your dates and time slots available, that's very important. And that's give easier options to clients as well. That hey, I can just click on book now and can go to the dates that I'm available. I will check my calendar. Oh, I'm available at 6 p.m. I can book it. So this is way easier option, and this is just a few steps that anybody can follow. Any psychologist can follow to automate your email tasks that you used to spend nearly a day or two. Your conversion rate will be a bit higher. That's why systems are very important. Technical systems, business systems, sales system, automations of, you can say, emails, or just like meeting links. They used to do mail thread to finalize where you are meeting. If it is Zoom, if it is Google Meeting, or if it is a proper normal call. So that's automation is also very important. So now let's make a circle out of it. Now, psychologists build their own websites, have a calendar system integrated to it, have multiple micro automations. A client is very eager to book a session, and now client booked the particular session. Now, for example, I'm the client, and I have booked the session tomorrow 6 p.m. Nearly this 24-hour window that I have, if I feel more anxious in between this particular 24 hours, what should I do as a client? And as a psychologist, if anybody booked a session to me, what exactly 24 hours before a psychologist can provide to a client. It can be a worksheet or it can be, you can say, just an email thread. What exactly psychologist can also do or a therapist can also do so that client may not feel anxious between this window.
Right. Right. So one thing that see, we can't really provide a worksheet or anything like especially in terms of work, because if it's a discovery call, we don't really know what are we even looking at or what concerns is the client looking at. But yes, there are two, three things like, say for example, like a FAQ document, like do's and don'ts, then what to expect during your first therapy session. A lot of times clients book that session, but then they're like, I don't know what to talk about because somebody told me that I need therapy, right? So what are the expectations in the first therapy session? This is also something that we as therapists can provide. FAQ documents, expectations in the first therapy session, so this will help the person ease a little, feel that yes, I have something to start with, or there is some way that I can go ahead with. Now, FAQ documents can have anything like what to bring in the first session, what is expected of you, how will the therapist be, or maybe just like the flow of session.
Right, so that multiple questions are already resolved. As a client, what I can do if I'm feeling anxious in this particular 24 hours window?
If at all you feel you're too anxious, and there is an option of reaching out to your therapist via email or via WhatsApp, that I'm too anxious, is there something that I can do? Right. So, one thing is that, yes, maybe the therapist may provide you two, three tips that you can try that. Deep breathing is something that you can do, maybe going out, drinking water, checking certain things that you may have not, say, for example, if you've not eaten for too long, or if you've had too much of caffeine, right? So that is something that you can check as a client. If there is any particular thing that you have done differently that you do on a regular basis, that is something that you can check. Of course, reaching out to therapists is always that option, but also expecting that the therapist may not be able to also give you that answer right then and there also, right? But yes, maybe taking deep breaths, drinking water, looking for a grounding technique. If you just type on Google right now, also a grounding technique, Google will give you multiple options in terms of how to manage your anxiety even when you're alone. So that is something that you can do as a client.
All right, so what do you think community support works in terms of acceptance to therapy and how community helps whenever anybody is facing mental health issues?
Firstly, community support in general for anything and everything is required because we as humans are social animals. This is one sentence that my college professor used to say, and it has stuck by me. I always tell this to all my clients also, that we are social animals. We require that support of community, right? Now, how can a community be supportive is by being open, being accepting, helping each other. A lot of times word of mouth is how the therapist practice builds, right? Before we had Instagram, before we had LinkedIn, word of mouth is the only thing, right? Say for example, if you go to a restaurant and you like a particular dish or you like that restaurant, you would go out there and tell ten people, right? अरे यहाँ पे जाओगे तो ये चीज जरूर try करना, right? Similarly, so when you are open about it, or when you see that maybe somebody is behaving a little differently, maybe if you feel that I think my friend requires support, or I think my friend may need therapy, so telling them that, hey, do you want me to help you find a good therapist, right? Or I know a particular person who used to go for therapy with this particular therapist. Should I find that number out for you? So that is how therapy, that is how community support can really work. Another ways of how community support is, there are a lot of support groups that are run by multiple therapists for multiple concerns. Now, a support group is a place where a person directly gets a message that I am not alone. I have a community support with me, right? So if you feel you want to
Right.
go ahead and give it a try, right? So
Mhm.
that is also one best option to find that kind of community support.
Right. What is the difference between normal community and a support group?
So normal community Normal community is basically it's not support group is basically focused. Say for example, anxiety support group or support group for anxiety. So that is a support group for people who are anxious, who are feeling anxious, or who are going through anxiety. But a general community is just has a lot of multiple things, but a support group is more focused to a particular concern. That's the major difference.
Understood. Understood. So if you want to communicate any one mantra that every therapist should follow, or one mantra that any client should follow, like every client should follow this particular ideology while taking therapy, that hey, I will see result after 1 month. This can be a mantra, or this can be a mantra that yes, I can switch my therapist because this is not working out. So what mantra would you prefer for psychologists and for clients?
For clients, it can be let's be open and honest about our feelings, and more than that, that it's okay to ask for help, right? So that can be like a big mantra for clients. In terms of psychologists, maybe helping each other out, right? Being there for each other, looking at each other as people who we can work together instead of competition, that oh, I don't want to work with this particular therapist or something like that. So reducing that can be a mantra for therapists, where let's support each other instead of competing with each other.
Right. So thanks a lot, Rashi, to be on this podcast. And I loved the conversation. I particularly loved the segment when you talked about the flow that therapy works and how therapy helps. So it was a great experience for me as well.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so glad that we did this.